Hey everybody, Steve Harper here. It is the Creative Expression Session from Your Creative Life. I am an actor, writer, producer, and certified creativity coach, and I am dedicated to helping people be fully expressed in their creative lives. And welcome to the Creative Expression Session, which is something that I do that's free for you, 30-minute call every now and then to talk about some creative juiciness in your life and in your creative life. And that's why we're here today. So, you know, I have, as you know, if you've been watching and following my work, you can find me on yourcreativelife.com. I have completely changed my creative life by leaning into a sense of creative expression, a sense of creating my own work, a sense of expansive growth in terms of what I do. And I'm really here to pass on those same skills, those same opportunities to you, because to me, the world is so much of a better, juicier, more powerful place when we're all creating at the top of our game. So that's the goal, to pass on wisdom and ideas and things that you can use to enhance and develop and support and expand your creative life. So as I said, I believe that the world is a better place when you create your work, when you create your own work. And I'm going to talk about why that is and why you ought to do that. Now, I'll also say to you that our call is 30 minutes today, and I have opened up the Q&A feature. So if you're watching this live, you can put your questions in the Q&A space on Google+, and when we get around to talking about questions, I can answer your question directly. Also, if you're not watching live, but you have questions about this or anything else that I do in terms of coaching or working or helping people out or anything, I'm really happy to receive questions, and you can always email me at coachsteve@yourcreativelife.com. So coachsteve@yourcreativelife.com. There's also an e-blast I send out every now and then, and you can certainly be in the know and connected to us doing that as well. So why create your own work? So I see this happen all the time. And just this morning on Facebook, I was reading a post from a friend who had the great good fortune to be cast in something really fantastic. And then between the casting session and when the thing actually happened, the part was taken away or renegotiated away. And I'm sure in some sense there'll probably be payment for him for that sort of thing. But I think the sense of what I learned and what most people out there who are actors know is that it's really about waiting for the right opportunity. It's really about hoping and praying and being in that space of saying, I really want to work, please give me the opportunity. And after a while, I get that it's that auditioning is a gift and a skill and is powerful and it can be done. But after a while, I really feel like there's an opportunity to really create your own work so that you're in charge of it, so that you know that it happens, so that you get to step into the roles that you're interested in, so that you get to see something to fruition and to expand your gifts and your skill set. It's a really powerful thing. So there are a number of reasons I think that are important in terms of creating your own work. Number one, super fun. I have had the great good fortune, which I'll be talking about some more, of creating my own web series, something called Send Me, an original web series, which you can find out information about at sendmebacktoslavery.com is the website. But I've had so much fun, and right now we have completed principal photography. We did a crowdfunding campaign before that, and then principal photography, and now we're eventually going into post, and we're working out what post might look like for our particular project. Funding-wise and all that, but it's been tremendously fun and tremendously empowering for me to step into the space of being a creator. I'm also the writer. I'm also an actor in the piece, and what a joy to step into that space. So fun is the number one reason, I think, why it's really important for people to create their own work, and I think that you can have a great deal of fun if you step into that space yourself. The second is work you're interested in. I mean, how often in all walks of life, whether you're a teacher or whether you're an actor or whether you're, I don't know, an editor, might you be sitting around saying, you know what, really happy to have this job, but I'm not super interested in this topic. So that's one of the opportunities for you to take the space and do that sort of thing. Create material that you can, that you're certainly and for sure interested in. So that's another reason to create your own work. Also, you can create and stretch your muscles creatively and organizationally. And so, as I said before, now that I'm working on Send Me, and I did a short film years ago, the notion of expanding myself in terms of being able to produce and write and act and all of this stuff that stretches me beyond what I've done before is great skill, both for the future when I perhaps might get hired to do those things, but also for the present in terms of more fun, more connection to my creative work, more of a skill set. And certainly I think that there is, and this goes to the fourth reason that I'm advocating creating your own work, is there is a sense that I've really found that's very powerful for me, where I get to change my relationship to the creative world around me by stepping into a different space in the creative world. So suddenly, as I go out for writing jobs, and I'm specifically, one of the things I do is I write. I've written for television, I'm a playwright, but my sense of how people respond to me and what I can bring to the table is profoundly different when I step into these conversations and I talk about the work that I'm producing, the work that I've created, the work that I cast, the work that I'm in the process of editing. Like, there's so much more of an expansion of me that is that allows the creative world to respond to me in a very different and very powerful way. So I think that that's yet another reason to create your own work. So with all those reasons, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why often we don't create our own work. And you're probably familiar with some of this stuff yourself, but I'm going to go through these reasons. And also, if you're just joining us, as some of you have, I've opened up the Q&A feature on Google Chat here, and you can type your questions in if you have questions as they come up, and we will get to questions at the end. So there's often a resistance, a reluctance to step into the space of creating our own work. And sometimes, the excuses are big and deep and completely understandable. And I had years of that sort of reluctance and resistance before I began to step into my own creative work and making the work that I do and the work that I love, which I'm really happy to be doing now. So why the reluctance? Why the resistance? Some people say, and I've said this in the past, I don't really know what I'm interested in. I would really rather step into somebody else's thing. It's really too hard. Number one, I'm not sure what I would work on. Number two, it's just too difficult to do all that stuff. And I'm really not sure that I'm up to being the leader of that sort of project. There might also be a part of you that says, I'm fine with the way things are. It's really okay. I'm really fine, going out into the world and asking to be given a job. That's really okay for me. And other people, you might say, and I certainly relate to this, I'd rather be asked. I'd rather somebody come up to me and say, hey, come on, join me, right? What a flattering and exciting thing to have happen. So with all of that resistance and all of that reluctance, it's also really important to say, okay, well, sometimes the best opportunity is really to create that opportunity. So even if you're saying, I don't know if I can do it, then the question I think for you is, are you satisfied with it the way it is now? Are you satisfied sort of going through your creative life saying, I'll let those people handle it and I'll wait to be asked? And if you are, great, I'd say stay there. But if you still have that urge, even though you're not sure what the topics might be, even though you're not sure whether you could do it, you still have the urge to step forward and make a difference on your own behalf with subjects you're interested in, where you have some sense or semblance of control, then I would say step into that space of being open to creating your own work, because that's what it's all about. So who's done this? It's not like this comes out of the blue. Many people have done this. You can think of all sorts of, and some very famous people. You can think of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have done this, created their own work, stepped into a new space, changed their career. Who ever heard of them before Good Will Hunting, right? Before they created their own work. Steve Jobs did it, in terms of working on Apple and creating his own company and revolutionizing what we think of as computing. Oprah has done it in terms of producing the films she's producing now, producing television series that are coming up, all of that. So there's really an opportunity to make a difference, as many famous people have, in stepping forward to do all sorts of things for yourself creatively. Okay, so now you may say to yourself, all right, I'm convinced. I've been thinking about this. I know it. I definitely want to do something that is my own creative project. How do I do it, right? So that's what we're going to talk about next, the how, after we've talked about the why and the why not, what those resistance factors are. So now the principles of creating your own work, as far as I'm concerned, are the same as the principles that may motivate you into any situation, any circumstance at all. And they're actually principles that I've talked about before on my website, in newsletters, and in a workshop that I do about the business of creating, like keeping yourself motivated and keeping yourself going strong. So it's a philosophy that I've thought about a lot and that I really believe in and that works quite well in my own creative work. And it's a system that involves a commitment to productivity and persistence and prosperity in your creative life. So here's how it works. It is, you can think of the acronym ABC, ME, right? ABC, the letters ABC, and me, ME. And the way we step into this space, this system of creating, is with the A. We start with the A, which is assess. So the assessment is, where are you now? How's it going, right? Whatever's working in your life, in your creative life, or whatever isn't, what do you love about it? And what might be able to be better? So I want to give you, this is going to be an interactive piece, so pull out a piece of paper if you haven't already, a notebook, a pen, what have you, your computer. And I want you to take, 30 seconds or so and jot down those things. Where are you now? What works for you in your creative process? What do you love about it? And what might be better? So very quickly, just jot down off the top of your head any of those things and take a moment to basically assess your creative life as it is. What's going well? What could be better? And while you're doing that, I'm going to take a sip of water. Good. So by now you've jotted down some notes. That's the assessment portion. And of course, you could do this assessment portion for hours or days, but we don't have that kind of time sort of in this session. So that's the assess. You've already jotted down what might work. The next piece is the B of ABC, and that's brainstorm. So you're going to brainstorm about what might be better than what you're doing. What are the projects that you might create or invent if you had the time and if there were no barriers? What might be those things? What might be among them? What kinds of things would they be? Would it be a web series or a play or a TV series or a one-person show or a documentary series or whatever? Just jot it down, whatever it is. Maybe it's about cleaning your house. Maybe it's about writing a book. Maybe it's about writing a blog. Doesn't matter. Just brainstorm. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds to brainstorm and to think about what that might be. So that's the B of the ABC, brainstorm. So go ahead, jot those things down. Anything goes here. There's no right and no wrong. It's just about you leaning into a space that is productive and beautiful for you. Couple of seconds to do that. Great. So by now you've assessed, that's the A. You've brainstormed, that's the B. And now that you've brainstormed and have a bunch of options there of projects you either want to work on or maybe partially are working on or keep hoping, my computer keeps dinging because, I don't know, people out there, I guess, are trying to reach me. But in any case, now that you have this list, this brainstorming list, I want you to look through that list and I want you to circle the top 1 or maybe 2 or 3 things you want to work on. And to me, 3 is always the limit of the kind of, because I generally try to juggle a bunch of projects, but really I can handle probably 3. So I want you to take a look at your list of brainstorm things and circle the 2 or 3 that are really interesting to you, that you really want to make a commitment and decision about. These are the things I want to do. Now I'll tell you, as you're looking at that and as you're considering, and you may find this difficult to sort of, to look at that space. But here's the thing, right? This is the step. This is the part where people mostly or sometimes falter. This is the part that becomes really challenging, right? So the deal is, so often in our creative lives, we spend so much time just thinking about stuff. It's often why people don't move ahead in their creative projects. I know, for example, my dad, who's a visual artist, he often says, oh, I want to do this cartoon series, but then I want to do this children's book, but then I want to do this puppetry thing. Oh, and I want to do greeting cards, and so he has all these things, and he just bounces from thing to thing in the space where he ought to be really choosing committedly what he's doing. So I think that's what happens to us so often, is we spend this time ruminating about the perfect project rather than jumping in and committing and choosing a project. And so that's where this particular piece, the ABC of assess, brainstorm, choose, becomes really, really important. So make a choice, make a firm choice, and commit to it. Because if you swim around in indecision, my experience tells me that you'll get nowhere. That's what I've found. That's what I've seen. That's what I've seen with clients. That's what I've seen with myself. That's what I've seen with family. So once you make that choice of the ABC, assess, brainstorm, choose, now we go into the me part. Remember, the formula is ABC, me, right, for this system of working. And the M of me is map. And the mapping of this is the space where the rubber hits the road. So now that we know what we're going to be working on, how are we going to do it? How are we going to get out there and do it? So that's the mapping piece. And the mapping piece has two parts to it. The first is break it down. And the second part is chart it out, right? So we're going to break down what the tasks are in this part of the things that we want to do. And then we're going to chart it out. We're going to figure out how is it that we're going to work on these things over time, right? So the first part, break it down, is what's the thing I want to do? Do I want to write a children's book, for example, right? And maybe I don't know anything about writing a children's book. So then the next question is, what are the steps? And I just begin to list the steps off the top of my head. Research. So I got to figure out the subject matter. I got to maybe talk to children. I got to maybe talk to other authors. I don't know. So you make a list of all of the things, and that's breaking it down. That's taking this big task that I love, that I want, that I've now committed to, and breaking it into these smaller steps, right? So you're going to do that. We won't have time to do that now, but that'll be the next step when you get back to your list. And the next piece of after breaking it down in the mapping section, right? Break it down, chart it out, is the charting it out. Now, the charting it out is super important because the question in the charting out is, how am I going to work on this, right? Now, there are a number of different ways. You might say, oh, I'll just fit it in. I'll do it, I don't know when, or it'll happen. But my experience is the more, or I should say the less we plan, the less actually happens. So I believe that there are a couple of methods in order to chart out how I'm going to work on something. One is the calendar piece. I can do certain days. I can say Tuesday and Thursday are going to be my days to work on my children's book, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or just Fridays or Saturdays, right? I can go to a calendar and I can just stamp on there, I'm going to work on this day, I'm going to work on that day. So that's one way to chart it out, just to choose specific days. Another way is to time schedule in chunks. So I can say every Monday from 12 to 2, I'm going to work on this project. Or every Monday from midnight to 1, or every Monday from 7 a.m. to 8:30, and I can do that and chart it out in terms of schedule. So there's calendar, schedule, and then there's chunks, there's time chunks. So I can say, you know what, I'm going to work on it a total of 6 hours a week. And those 6 hours can happen anytime during the week. Right? I can do an hour here if I happen to have it, an hour here, an hour there, and then by the end of the week, I want to come up to 6 hours, right? So there are a couple of different ways. There's the days, there's the time scheduling of chunks, and there's the appointments. I said appointments for when the work is going to happen. So any of those or any combination of those are great ways to set the intention of saying, here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm going to work on, and here's how, right? So far, we've assessed, we've brainstormed a new way of being, a new way of perhaps working on something. We've chosen which projects we're going to work on, and now we have mapped, which is the M of the me, ABC, me. We've mapped out, first breaking it down, then charting it out, what it is we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So you see how this is sort of a comprehensive view of how we're going to attack this project that we're going to create on our own. And one thing I want to say before I get to the last portion of that is that the structure of this is really important, because when you work by yourself or for yourself, the notion of being able to say like, oh, this is exactly what I'm doing becomes a very crucial thing. Otherwise, it's sort of a slippery slope of, oh, I'm not working, I'm on vacation, I'm at home, I'm not responsible to anyone. This really gives you a framework. So the last piece of this is the E of me, ABC, me, and the E stands for execute. And so the execution thing that's where the rubber really hits the road. That's where it really breaks down, right? Because without execution, all the plans in the world won't get us anything, we'll just have plans rather than have a project. So the execution phase is really key. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I want to get to your questions, and we only have 30 minutes today. But you can see how fertile this is. And again, I teach this both in the workshop that's about moving your business ahead and the creative kind of fertility of what it is you do as an artist. And I also do it with one-on-one client work, and you can certainly watch this video again on YouTube after we're done here, and you can always ask me questions at coachsteve@yourcreativelife.com. But you can see the importance of this kind of framework. So the execution piece is key, and the question is, what tools will help me execute? And there are a number of different tools, right? So we've already talked about the calendar, we've talked about timers, we've talked about, the phone. Like I could call somebody up and say, hey friend, I'm about to work on my screenplay, and when I'm done working on screenplay in 2 hours, I'll call you again, right? I can do that. Or I can use the calendar on my phone or the timer on my phone. I can use my computer to set timers, to do schematic charts, to do an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of my time, right? All of these are possibilities. I can offer myself rewards. I can say, you know what, if I get to this page in my project or this far in my project, then I'm going out to dinner. Then I'm going to buy that cake. Then I'm going to go on vacation. Then I'm going to exercise, right? So all of these kinds of tools, and there are so many more. Listening to music, doing meditation, creating photographs that are inspiring. So many tools to help make sure that the execution of our project happens little by little, day by day, week by week, month by month, because that persistence and that consistency is the thing that really makes a difference in terms of creating your own work. Now, there are so many other tools, podcasts, reading books, doing research, right? All of that stuff can really help motivate us. But I think that there's one that really comes across, and research has proven is really, really helpful. And that is an accountability group or working with other people. How often have you noticed that if you're, say, in a class with other people, or you tell your neighbor that you're going to do something, or your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or a friend, and then you realize, oh, because I told them, I feel a little more responsible. I feel like I really need to show up because I promised so-and-so that I would do this thing. So I think the notion of creating your own accountability group, or joining a group of people, or calling somebody one-on-one, or taking a class, like those are great motivators to do our own projects, because otherwise it's really hard to sort of float in the ether without any sense of accountability or responsibility. So it's a great way. I really encourage you to do that. And in fact, we've been talking about creating an accountability kind of group here at Your Creative Life, and that may be coming up in the future, so take a look at that. But I certainly know from my own experience, even with my crowdfunding piece for the web series, that I read this fantastic book called Crowdfunding for Filmmakers by a guy named John Trigonis. Fantastic book. And one of the things that he really recommends in terms of crowdfunding is to have a team and to build a team. So once I found my team, I just started asking people. Suddenly I had a team of 5 people, and then they were responsible to me, but I was also responsible to them. And each week I was talking to them about, well, what should we do next? And we tried to do this, and what about that? And could you blah, blah, blah. And suddenly this project that had only been living in my head was living out in the world with 4 or 5 people. And that was super powerful. I think that same kind of power can be harnessed by your own creative projects if you set up an accountability group or begin to work with and or bounce off things to other like-minded people. So super cool. That's the system, ABC Me. And I think, this kind of structure can really motivate you through your creative day, and I think through your creative life into a space of productivity with these simple tools. It's really, really doable, and I really encourage you to step into the opportunity and the process of creating a framework so that you can really thrive in terms of your creative work. So now I want to open it up for questions. We're coming to the end of our session here, but I want to open up to questions. There is a Q&A feature if you're watching us in the Google Hangout, Google Chat. You can put in a question there. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Don't be shy, because there are no stupid questions, and feel free to do that. Also, while I'm waiting for questions, I'll mention again that you can always email me at coachsteve@yourcreativelife.com and find out more information about what I do and this system and there are blogs and articles at yourcreativelife.com. So go check that out there. So here are a couple of questions that I thought you might ask. So I'll throw these in as substitutes for your questions. One of them is, how do you, and I've been asked this before, how do you choose the tools that work for your particular creative process? It's a great question. So, you know, there is a process that I do in the workshop where I teach this technique where we do a tools game. So you take all those tools that I mentioned, and as many as you can think of, and you cut them out on little pieces of paper, and you throw them into a hat, and then you pull them out of the hat. You're like, okay, look, oh, the tool of the internet. And then you take a piece of paper and you write down internet, and you brainstorm for yourself about how you might use the internet to achieve and move your project ahead. You know, I do research on Google. I would watch videos on YouTube. I would, whatever it is. So that's a way to kind of cultivate an awareness of how a tool might work for you. And I suggest doing that with as many tools as you like. And then trying it out, saying, okay, for the next 3 days, I'm going to use the internet. For the next 3 days, I'm going to do this sort of research. For the next 2 hours, I'm going to, you know, and just begin to sort of test it out and see what actually works for you. So that's one way to choose a really excellent tool. One other question, you know, often people get really stuck. They're like, I'm really excited to try stuff, and then I get in the middle and I get stuck. And so it's another opportunity for me to just say, like, I think there's no substitute for the chance to create a community. I feel like the kind of work that we do as creative people is often benefited by community. So to have an action group, to have a mastermind group, to have a class, to create a study group, to get that kind of feedback. You know, I do this all the time with my writing. There are people I'll send my scripts to. There are people I'll ask, oh, what about this? There are mentors I have, and there are people I mentor and people I work with as a coach, and coaches that I hire, you know. And the notion of creating that kind of synergy of help to not be alone in the work, I think makes a huge difference. So that is all about creating your own work, why create your own work, how to create your own work, and how to push past the resistance and the challenges that might come up when you try to create your own work. And again, happy to answer your questions at coachsteve@yourcreativelife.com. Feel free to watch this video over again. And I want to tell you that coming up on March 28th here in Los Angeles, my next workshop is happening on a Saturday live here in LA, and it's called Your TV Writing Life. This is a workshop that I taught for the first time probably about 6 months ago. And it's a really great workshop about television. So if you're interested in writing for television or haven't yet done it, I give you an overview of my experience as a TV writer on Covert Affairs. We take a look at sample television stuff. We talk about going from general idea to outline, to character, to story, and we do it all in this crazy kamikaze sort of a 3 to 4 hour block, where by the end you're actually writing, you know, the first scene of your piece. Having stepped through several different places. So it's really fast and furious, but it gives you a fantastic overview. You can find out information about that on the website, yourcreativelife.com. And that, again, is going to be on March 28th, 2015. So please join us. It'll be really fun. And look, the bottom line is, whether you come to my workshop, follow this method, whatever you do, the most important thing is for you to show up in your creative work, to be fully expressed, to expand your ideas, to expand your reach, to make the world a better place by sharing everything that you have in a creative way as often as you can, in a way that is true and honest and really speaks to the human condition. Because I feel like that's what art does, and that's what you can do, that's what you have the power to do in terms of your work and your world. So I wish you the absolute best of luck. Thanks for joining us here. Feel free to watch this video again if it'll help you, and to be in touch, and to check out all the goodness at yourcreativelife.com. And I wish you the happiest of happy creations as you work on whatever you're working on now and whatever you're working on next. Thanks for joining us.